producer's role or job is to find, create, develop projects that can become content for multiple platforms, whether it's television, feature film, YouTube, Hulu, Netflix, whatever it is, your job is to try to find, create, develop, and then bring that project to fruition. Back in the day, actors and directors stayed away from television. They stayed away from television in some ways for good reason. Television was canned, as they say. It was set up and joke, set up and joke. The scope was limited. Many times it was just shot inside. Today's television can be as big, as broad, as impactful as any feature film you can imagine. Let me give you an example of how much things have changed in television. I have a friend. He used to shoot Hill Street Blues. It was the Sopranos of its day. Well, he directed 5 or 6 episodes and was a pretty good director. He could not get arrested as a feature film director. Could not get arrested. Nowadays, if you were to shoot 5 or 6 episodes of Homeland, of Sopranos, you would, without a doubt, be able to direct a feature film.
More and more, you're finding people like J.J. Abrams and Joss Whedon who built careers in television and really learned their craft in that medium, who are now being entrusted with $300 million movies by Hollywood studios. TV writing is really different from film writing in a lot of respects. The first is, if you're writing on a show, it's going to get made, which is fantastic. One of the biggest complaints that film writers have is there are people with long careers making really good money. They have houses, they have kids in private school, and they have never once seen a word of theirs make it to the screen. So if you're in television, it's getting made. There's an air date. It's happening. A script needs to happen. These problems need to be solved in a timely manner. So that's number one. Television writing is much more collaborative than feature writing. Typically on a television show, you're working on a staff of people. On a sitcom, the classic model is what's called a writer's room. And so what happens is people come together at the beginning of the season. They come up with a whole bunch of stories. Those scripts will be assigned to an individual writer. That's probably the person who got credited at the beginning of the episode with that first draft. But then that first draft comes back to the room and everybody's adding jokes and punching it up. The biggest differences between television and film writing: television writing, you get to see your work made, and television writing is collaborative. Feature film writing is often writers write things that never get made because movies are so expensive and there's so much bureaucracy, and feature writers tend to work in isolation for long periods of time.
Television is the beast that has to be fed. What does that mean? Television has to be programmed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are jobs there because television now is not such a basic medium that it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Television now, some of their budgets are as big and as in scope and in financially as feature films are. So something like Sopranos and Homeland are made for $3, $4, $5 million. Those are huge budgets, and there's a lot of room for up-and-coming filmmakers, up-and-coming producers, and directors in television. So at the end of the day, you really need to make sure that you're learning the different structures in television, whether it be reality television, sitcom, or the 1 hour format, because there's jobs there.
If you're genuinely interested in launching a career as a television writer, you need a writing sample. Which shows you choose to spec to write your sample episode of, to use as your sample, is a really important decision, because you're telling your readers something about you. It's your first step really in branding yourself. For example, I'm a single woman and both my parents are gone and I don't have any children. I love the show Modern Family, but frankly, I wouldn't hire me to write on Modern Family because I don't have a wealth of family stories to draw from. So why would I brand myself as somebody who can write a family show when I'm less likely to get hired on that staff? A much better show for me would be something about, a single woman who doesn't have kids. So maybe Mindy Kaling's show would be a better show for me. That would make a lot more sense as my brand. So as a writer choosing what shows you want to write sample episodes of, you really need to think about what your strengths are and who you are, how you want to present yourself. What can you write well, and how are other people going to see you? The first biggest choice is comedy or drama. Are you a half-hour writer or are you a 1-hour writer? Okay. Now, once you've made that distinction, well, within that world, if you're going to 1 hour, there are different kinds of shows. There's procedurals. There are emotional family dramas. There's, HBO type shows. So you really want to look at the marketplace and figure out, where do you fit in? What's a show that you could see yourself on? What's a good match for you? That's the show you want to write.